everyone, stand by. We're just here to assist in any way we can. That's what Homeland Security does.
If they wanted to criticize my job, go ahead and do that, but clearly they can't. They just pick something petty like that.
Okay, South Park is taking no prisoners in its new season, and despite backlash from Trump administration officials, they are unfazed.
Kristi Noem just erupted in a full-blown tantrum after South Park humiliated her in a shocking episode that turned authority into a cruel punchline. What started as satire instantly blew up, exposing how fragile power really is. The episode lasted minutes, but the nation watched her carefully built image crack in real time.
Homeland Security to Department of War. The protesters are headed your way.
The hard thing about South Park is, like, you go at them and they go back at you twice as hard.
South Park does not mock gently, and in this episode, it does not blink. It takes Kristi Noem's public image and stretches it until it snaps, turning authority into obsession and power into parody. The show doesn't argue with her politics or debate her policies. It strips her of seriousness entirely and leaves her exposed as a character meant to be laughed at. That kind of satire is lethal because it doesn't shout. It lets the audience laugh, and laughter is the one thing power cannot control.
While South Park is, in Ellison's words, highly profitable and a huge hit on streaming.
There's too many of them.
What makes the episode so shocking is how deliberately it leans into real tension without ever naming it. The exaggerated ICE imagery, the rigid obsession with control, the cartoon authority barking orders into chaos. It all feels uncomfortably close to reality. South Park doesn't explain the joke or soften the blow. It trusts viewers to connect the dots themselves. In doing so, it turns a political figure into a symbol, and symbols are far easier to destroy than people.
But I actually was a little surprised that was her reaction, because she's tough. I mean, she's taken criticism forever. I don't actually look at it as a woman issue. I just look at it as they're just making fun of everybody. I mean,
there is no dramatic buildup, no warning shot. The humiliation spreads instantly, faster than any response team can contain it. Clips fly across the internet, and each replay sharpens the damage, turning satire into perception and perception into truth. South Park doesn't chase relevance here. It dominates it, proving once again that a cartoon can shake power more brutally than any press conference ever could.
They whacked the woke, they're now having a crack, and anyone who, of course, has seen the Book of Mormon would know that's their kind of humor.
DHS hag Kristi Noem, who is terrorizing immigrant communities, is a little upset that South Park had the gall to make fun of her appearance.
South Park didn't just mock Kristi Noem. It stripped her down to a caricature built on control, anger, and obsession with power. The episode exaggerates her image until it becomes uncomfortable. She's shown barking orders, clinging to ICE symbolism like armor, turning enforcement into spectacle. It's absurd, but that's what makes it sting. The writers never say her real name out loud in some moments, yet everyone knows exactly who they're talking about. That's the danger of good satire. It doesn't accuse, it reflects. And what it reflected back wasn't strength, it was rigidity.
They actually released this bonus clip on Twitter last night, poking fun at DHS Secretary Kristi Noem's past.
The episode lands at a time when immigration enforcement is already a raw nerve in the country, especially with recent tensions and federal actions making headlines. South Park doesn't explain any of that. It doesn't need to. It lets the audience connect the dots, and that silence hits harder than a monologue ever could.
At first, Noem was in on the joke. She and ICE used the show as a recruitment push on social media, but it was fun until it wasn't.
What makes it worse is the response gap. After the episode airs, there's no immediate rebuttal from Noem's office, no calm dismissal. No humor, just quiet. Meanwhile, laughter fills the vacuum. Within hours, clips are chopped into seconds-long bites and launched onto TikTok, X, and YouTube Shorts. Some rack up millions of views overnight. People who haven't watched a full South Park episode in years suddenly know exactly who Kristi Noem is supposed to be in this story. Memes paint her as unhinged, obsessed with law and order to the point of parody. It's brutal because it's simple. Satire becomes perception, and perception starts rewriting reality. Once that happens, control doesn't slip slowly, it drops.
Obviously, one, Trump applauded and has now said that was so great, get rid of all these other late night hosts on other networks. They eliminated the DEI programs.
By the next morning, the numbers tell the story. Her name is searched more than any of her recent policy announcements combined. But it's not curiosity, it's ridicule. And that's when the tone changes. Noem finally responds, and it's not measured. It's emotional, defensive, sharp. The language jumps straight from leadership to accusation. Suddenly the episode isn't a joke anymore. It's an attack, not on her, but on law enforcement, on national security, on people risking their lives. That framing is deliberate, but it feels rushed. Viewers can sense it. This doesn't read like strategy crafted by a calm team. It reads like someone who took it personally and hit post anyway.
At the end. Yeah, she's getting looser and looser, and then they kind of put her face back on.
Yeah.
The all caps energy doesn't help. The repetition doesn't help. Every message sounds louder than the last, and louder doesn't mean stronger, it means rattled. Critics immediately point out the irony. A cartoon makes her look obsessed with control, and her real-life response confirms it. Supporters try to rally, but the internet doesn't slow down for nuance. Late-night commentators, political streamers, even neutral observers pile on. The narrative hardens fast. She wasn't attacked, she overreacted, and once that idea sticks, it's almost impossible to shake.
You know, like kind of like, we're cool, we can handle it, and then at some point Trump is like, I will burn this building to the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
There's another layer beneath all of this that makes the moment heavier. The country is already tense around immigration enforcement, especially after recent ICE-related shootings and protests in Minneapolis that left communities shaken and demanding answers. These aren't abstract debates. People are emotional. Trust is fragile. Against that backdrop, South Park's exaggeration feels uncomfortably close to real headlines. Noem tries to link the satire to dangerous rhetoric, suggesting it fuels unrest, but that move backfires. To many viewers, it sounds like deflection, like blaming a cartoon for emotions that were already boiling.
What kind of lawyers do they have? They got cool lawyers.
Well, if it's parody, right, you can do anything.
Then comes the press appearance. This is supposed to be the reset. Instead, it deepens the damage. Her posture is rigid. Her words are sharp. She lashes out at the media, comedians, critics, all in one breath. The tone isn't reassuring. It's a confrontation. Analysts don't need to speculate. The footage speaks for itself. Authority doesn't need to shout. And when it does, people notice. Meanwhile, South Park says almost nothing. No apology, no explanation, just a quiet follow-up gag online. A wink. That silence is devastating because it reinforces the power shift. A sitting political figure is visibly angry, and a cartoon doesn't even bother to argue back. The contrast is brutal.
Instead of being the butt of the joke, sharing his South Park moment, saying, I finally made it.
By this point, the episode itself almost doesn't matter anymore. The tantrum becomes the story. The reaction eclipses the satire. What started as a 22-minute cartoon turns into days of headlines, clips, and commentary questioning her temperament and judgment, not because of what South Park did, but because of how she responded. In the end, this wasn't about policy or ideology. It was about ego colliding with ridicule in public. And once that collision happened, there was no clean exit. A cartoon didn't dismantle power on its own. It exposed how fragile it can look when it feels laughed at.
So let's get out there and get them, recruits. Together we can make it happen.
There's something important happening in the background of all this that makes the South Park episode hit harder than it normally would. Minneapolis is already on edge. Not in a loud, chaotic way, but in that quiet, exhausted way where people are tired of headlines involving federal enforcement and use of force. Recent ICE-related shooting incidents have left the city tense. Communities emotional and trust painfully thin. Nothing graphic, nothing sensational here. Just a country already feeling raw, and into that atmosphere drops a South Park episode that pokes directly at power, authority, and enforcement culture. The timing is terrible or perfect, depends on who you ask.
It's clear where they land.
Good.
It's
good.
really good.
Keep them on their toes, you know?
I'm so happy this is back. Like, just go there for every joke. Parody isn't what we're missing.
This is on my list of things because I still have to watch the first episode all the way through, so I gotta watch both of those.
That fragility matters. Because when trust is already shaky, satire doesn't land as just a joke. It feels sharper, more pointed. South Park didn't mention Minneapolis by name, but it didn't have to. The episode leaned into exaggerated enforcement imagery, authoritarian vibes, and cartoonish control freak energy. People watching didn't see fiction floating in a vacuum. They connected it to real tension playing out in real cities. So when Kristi Noem later tried to frame the episode as dangerous rhetoric, a lot of viewers didn't nod along. They raised an eyebrow. To them, it sounded like someone blaming a cartoon for emotions that were already boiling over. forever. And that's where the backfire really begins. Instead of calming the moment, Noem's response poured gasoline on it. She linked satire to real-world harm, suggesting comedy itself was irresponsible in times like these. But here's the problem. People don't like being told what they're allowed to laugh at, especially when they're already stressed. The public noticed the timing immediately. This wasn't leadership stepping in to soothe tensions. It felt like deflection wrapped in outrage. And once that impression settles in, it spreads fast.
Welcome to the team, recruits. I'm Kristi Noem, head of Homeland Security. Well, she seems nice. Okay, very pretty. A few years ago, I had to put my puppy down by shooting it in the face. Because sometimes doing what's important means doing what's hard.
Then comes the press conference. This is the moment meant to reset the narrative. The cameras are set, the podium is ready, the backdrop screams authority, but body language tells a different story. Her jaw is tight. Her shoulders are stiff. The tone is sharp from the first sentence. She doesn't ease into her message. She charges into it. Media, comedians, critics, all lumped together as part of the problem. The words come out fast, clipped, almost daring someone to push back.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, South Park is something that has been fun and making fun of people for, I don't know how many years, 20 years.
Every gesture, every pause, every sharp word was noticed. The emphasis sounded defensive, not commanding. This wasn't calm leadership, it was retaliation, a public explosion of ego. Commentators froze, unsure how to respond. They expected dismissal, humor, or distance. Instead, they got full-blown confrontation.
And the second is Noem's face melting and having to be reattached by her employees.
Wow.
Confrontation invites response. Political opponents pounced, clipping footage and framing it as instability. Late-night hosts smelled blood instantly. The irony was impossible to ignore. A politician furious about being mocked, now mocked for being furious. Even neutral viewers leaned in, drawn not by the cartoon but by her reaction. Supporters tried to defend her, citing respect, media bias, double standards. But online, volume beats loyalty. Criticism drowned out defense. The tantrum grew larger than the episode itself. It wasn't satire anymore. It was temperament, judgment, and the fragility of power on display. And South Park did the most brutal thing possible. Nothing. No statement, no apology, no defense. Just a blink and you miss it gag. The contrast was devastating. One side furious and exposed, the other calm, playful, untouchable. Every reaction from Noem fed the fire, cementing the narrative. By the end, the line between authority and tantrum collapsed. In 2026, a cartoon didn't expose power. It exposed ego.